Hello lovelies, and welcome back to Sewing with AnnaStasia. If you've been following along, the last episode I showed you how to read a pattern and told you to cut out your pattern pieces. I hope you have. This one here, I'm going to show you how to read those pattern pieces, how to cut them out of your fabric, and then maybe we'll get started. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have a nice area to work with. I am lucky enough to have a giant craft table that I was able to cut my patterns out with. Now, some things I wanted to show you. When you cut your patterns out, fold them up, keep them in a nice little stack. You also want the pieces that you don't use, make sure you keep those nice and folded up as well. That way they fit right back into the package and you don't have to worry about how you're going to store this stuff afterwards. I also wanted to point out that sometimes in the pattern, there are two pieces with the same number. For example, in this pattern here, piece number 1 has 3 different pieces that you can cut out for it. You do not need to cut out all 3 of these. Just cut out the one that has your size that you're cutting out. That is all you need to do. Also, you're going to cut out your pattern pieces with a regular pair of shears. You are not going to use this set of shears on any fabric. I have 2 pairs of shears. This top one is for my patterns and any paper pieces, stuff like that. This bottom one is for all of my fabrics. This set here is pretty expensive, but I've noticed a huge difference since I switched to actual fabric shears as opposed to just generic little shears. Also, if you do any paper crafts and you have small shears or little small scissors, do not use those on anything for your fabric stuff because you will dull them, and those need to be really sharp to get nice clean edges for your paper. But if you work with paper craft, you probably already know this. Also, I'm going to point out, I'm going to show you this little handy dandy contraption. This is to sharpen your scissors. All you do is you take your scissors, open them up, stick them into this, and do one of these things. That will sharpen your scissors. You need to sharpen your scissors frequently enough that they are sharp, but not so frequently that you're eating down the blade. Okay, I want to point out some things on your pattern. First of all, here's the whole pattern piece. It's one of the smaller ones. This is for the bodice. There's going to be a number on it. That is the number that corresponds to the piece in your pattern book. There's going to be a little description in English and then in a couple other different languages. I think French and Spanish. There's going to be instructions. Cut 2 of fabric, cut 2 of lining. That means you need to cut 2 of these from your fabric and 2 of these from your lining. There's also going to be, on some of them, an arrow like this. This means that this arrow needs to align with the grain line of your fabric. The only way I can really explain this, because I have never taken any sewing lessons or classes, so I do not know all the terminology. But the grain line is going to be the pattern on a patterned piece. If it's not patterned, it's going to have a similar look. It's just something I've been able to determine by sewing for many, many years. But if you have a pattern, you want to make sure that this lines up with your pattern. Also, if you have a pattern, be very, very careful when you are lining this up and cutting it out, so that you make sure all of your pattern pieces are right side up. You don't want to accidentally cut one out and it be upside down. You're also going to notice little dots, big dots, and dashed lines. These all need to be transferred onto your fabric once you have cut out your pattern. This pattern also needs to be ironed. You can see I haven't ironed it yet. It is very important to iron it. I always cut mine out first because it's just easier. And you also notice that there are little triangular notches at certain places. These here, I don't cut them out at this stage, and I don't even cut them out as a triangle. I just clip in that area. Once it is attached to my fabric and I've cut my pattern or the fabric out, while the pattern is still attached to the piece, I then clip at these points. All these are markers so that you know where to align and attach your pieces. That is the only purpose they serve that I can tell from all of the patterns that I have used over the years. Okay, after you have your patterns ironed and your fabric ironed, you're going to pin your patterns to your fabric. So I'm going to do a dress for Star Wars Celebration. I was originally going to buy some Star Wars fabric, maybe some Star Wars Rebel print cotton fabric. I've, however, changed my mind because I forgot a while ago I had bought stuff to make an R2-D2 dress. So I'm actually going to use that. So the top of my dress is going to be this white silk. The bottom of my dress is going to be a blue silk, and then I'll do some detailing with some ribbons and such to give it a little bit more R2-D2 feel. And I'm also going to do an underskirt with tulle that is not going to be a pattern, but will be a great second project for us because it's not going to be too terribly difficult to make without a pattern. So make sure your pattern's ironed. Now, I talked to you about the grain line on your pattern pieces. A couple of the pieces here have an arrow that wants you to put on the grain line. I have found that if you fold the fabric in half, your grain line is going to be up and down. Just as long as your pieces all have the same direction and you're not going every which way with your arrows, it should work out for the most part. I haven't had any real problems with the grain line. Just remember, if you're doing a pattern, make sure your pattern, pay very, very close attention to your pattern to make sure that you're not going to accidentally cut something out upside down. Now, this that you're seeing right here, it's two pieces. You can see I have it, it's folded in half. This side here on the inside, the two sides touching each other, those are the outside of my fabric. That is what's going to show. This here is the inside of my fabric. This is not going to show. That is how I like to cut out my pieces. And over here, along this edge here that you can barely see up by the glue bottle, is the fold. I'm going to start with the bodice pieces for this dress. Now, there are a whole bunch of pieces. Because mine is not patterned, it does not matter if they are this way, if they are this way, or if they're upside down in either direction, because I don't have a pattern. If you have a pattern, you need to make sure that the pattern will be right side up once you are finished. So, I'm going to start with the pieces that have this little thing right here. This means that this edge of the pattern needs to be placed on a fold. There are two pieces in our pattern that have this, 3 and 2. If you've chosen a fabric that has a pattern, you'll notice the 3 has the fold on the left-hand side and the 2 has the fold on the right-hand side. If you simply flip this over like that, that will give you your pattern in the correct direction, as well as have your folds on the same side. I'm going to start with number 3. I have my pins here, and I'm going to line number 3 up to the edge of the fold, and then I'm going to pin it in place. I like working on a hard surface because then I can kind of dig my pins down into the counter and then back up. It helps. Make sure you pin it well. Some people use weights. I don't have any weights, so I haven't actually tried it yet. I am worried that if you use weights as a beginner, it might move the pattern pieces around too much and make it a little bit too difficult. But if you want to give weights a try, feel free. I know a lot of people don't actually buy sewing weights. They will buy like nuts and bolts or fishing weights and stuff like that, because you know, you market anything for sewing and they're gonna up the price. So use everyday objects. It's kind of the same principle of my glue bottle and my pinking shears there, of just holding things in place. It's exactly what we're doing with the pins as well. Just holding these pattern pieces in place so that we can cut them out. Once you have the pattern pieces that go on your fold pinned, you're going to start on the other pieces. Now, if you look in your pattern book, it actually gives you how to line up your pattern pieces. This works if you're doing your pattern pieces all on one type of fabric. I am not, therefore I am doing mine a little bit differently. But as long as you lay them out, I always start with the fold pieces first because those absolutely have to go on a fold, and then I start working on the other pieces, and I just kind of lay them out, make sure that everything works, and then if it does and I have enough fabric, I go ahead and pin those in place and cut them out. Okay, so once you have your pieces cut out, I had mentioned that you're going to need to transfer markings like these circles here. There are a couple of different ways to do it. How I do it is I use a fabric marking pencil in a color that will show up. I have white and I have yellow, so obviously for my white fabric I chose yellow. And then you stick a pin through the area to mark it, or you can just eyeball it like I do, where you pull it back, do your marks, and then you also need to make sure you do the marks on the opposite side as well.